All right, so I just wanted to revisit two stocks that I've made videos on in the past. And I made these videos before the market experienced, its severe struggles, and you see the entire market drop pretty much 15 to 20%. So obviously, these stocks went down. It's kind of hard to find a stock that will go up in those situations. Um, but now that those struggles seem to have kind of subsided a little bit, the market's making a little bit of a bounce back. I just wanted to share these stocks again because I think these are great candidates to truly break out. And the two stocks are Uber and Vistra. And I made the Uber video a little farther back than the Vistra video. Um, but these two stocks are both stocks that obviously fell during the struggles that the market had, and the extreme fear in the market, but they both bounced back very well, and they're basically either back or higher than where they were before the market dropped. So you see Uber here. It was at basically 74, 75 April 2nd. You saw those huge drop because of the tariffs, and it dropped probably to 65, around a 10% drop, and then now we are back up even higher to around 78. So again, that alone, I was already invested in these two companies before, so I was not going to sell them. That would not be smart. I made a video on that why you shouldn't sell, and hopefully you didn't, because the market has bounced back nicely. That's for sure. I don't know how long this is going to last. I obviously can't predict the market, but those scenarios you don't want to sell. But I'm already invested in it, and I saw that Uber bounced back very well. So that kind of tells me something about the business. It's very resilient to problems, and just what they do alone in the ride sharing industry is something that attracts me as an investor, because it's not going to be really affected by tariffs. Obviously, the market is going. There's a huge sell-off in the market. It's going to be affected, but with their financials, they will most likely be unaffected or very affected very little by the tariffs, because they're not transporting stuff overseas, different countries. They do all their services within certain countries, and they make all their money within respective countries. So, that's something that kind of speaks to me. It's a company that, again, I made a video on in the past. It has stellar growing financials. They report earnings soon. So those should be hopefully another catalyst for the stock to really have it break out above these levels that's we've been stuck at for a couple years, around these 80 levels. And it broke out once here, but it kind of just went back down. And I made a video on, kind of stuck at these levels because their net profits weren't growing at all. Their revenues were, but their net profits weren't. And then again, you saw a couple months back, it was at around 60, and they announced their earnings that they were making a good amount of money. I mean, their net profits went up a ton. I have the exact number in my first video on Uber, but you saw it jump immediately to 79. It was ready to really go past there, I feel like. But then the tariffs hit, and then it really couldn't blossom any farther, because around this mid-February point, the whole entire market started to slowly drag down, and towards April, you saw the really big drop. So now that all the tariff talk, it's obviously still going on, and there's still fear in the market, it's kind of subsided a little bit. I think it's really time for Uber to shine. These earnings are huge. I think they're May 8th, or maybe before that. Let me check. Uber quarterly. So they are reporting earnings on May 7th. Yeah. So, those earnings on May 7th are huge. They're huge for the stock, because, you can see those levels break 80 to 85, and it continues to hike above where I see it at, above 100, 115, 120. And just the company alone, PE ratio of around 17. That's very solid. They basically have no competition. They have Lyft, obviously, but they're basically hold a monopoly on the ride sharing industry. Still not huge market cap, so a lot of room to grow. I could see it easily 300 billion market cap. It's not crazy to see, or higher. And it's just something to think about. You're holding the stock, and it really responds well to the tariffs. So there's certain stocks like Amazon and Nvidia who were truly hit really hard. And they bounced back a little bit, but they haven't really bounced back to the levels they were at before all the tariff fears hit. So that's a little concerning. Obviously, they're good businesses for the future, but for the short term and long term, I think Uber is a good pick. So, this is a stock that I'm very confident in. I'd say the first one that I would urge you to invest in if you didn't already when I originally made the video. I think now is a great time. And then the second stock is Vistra. And this one is also, it's a different type of stock. It's an energy stock. They do electricity and power generation, and majority of their revenue and their kind of claim to fame came from, the AI boom, and that, all these new AI companies like NVIDIA and Microsoft and Google would need like electricity to power the AI, because it is a very power and electricity heavy industry. AI, you need a lot of that to produce AI. So a company like Vistra, which just produces the energy, saw a lot of success and a lot of growth in their revenues and net profits from this AI boom. And it's just really getting started. They're still a very small company at 43, not very small, but they're a relatively small company at 43 billion market cap. Lots of room to grow. PE ratio of 18 is great. And they kind of follow NVIDIA's trajectory. You see, again, this isn't a company problem with this drop from these 190 levels down to the 100 levels. But it's really just a drop in NVIDIA, and it kind of just followed the overall market sell-off. So again, that's something you want to look at as an investor is, that drop, is it because of a company problem, or is it because of an overall market problem? And it was not because of a company problem. So that inclines me to think that, it should easily get back to those levels as long as nothing else goes on with the market and you don't see another huge sell-off. And you're already seeing, again, a very nice bounce back from these levels. You see around the 120, 127 levels. Before this huge drop, they dropped to about 20%, whatever, 15% to around the 100 levels, and they're already bouncing back up. And that is great to see as an investor. And in terms of the near term, I could see it very easily, and I talked about this in my first video, very easily going to 190 again and beyond. Just because AI, even with the tariffs, they'll hurt the revenues of NVIDIA and whatever, but the AI boom is not even over, and many CEOs have said that the demand for AI is very much still real, and it very much still exists. So that's something to look at, and obviously you can invest in NVIDIA and still get good returns over the long term. I'm sure of that, but this is a stock that I choose just because it's way smaller than NVIDIA. NVIDIA's 3 trillion market cap. This is 43 billion. NVIDIA can't run more than double. It can't just double again, because with the way market cap works, it would have 6 trillion market cap, just unrealistic. So it is still going to go, and it'll probably go 10 to 20% a year, maybe a little 30%. But Vistra has so much room to run, and its PE ratio is 18 compared to NVIDIA's around probably 40 or a little less. But this is an up and coming company that is attached to the AI boom, but in an interesting way with energy, and you kind of also get a little bit of diversity there with the energy aspects, so you're not fully tied to the AI boom. So it's an interesting stock to look at. I would 100% buy now. I think, again, you look at the momentum here. We're continuing to rise here up to 126, unless something drastic happens with the market and we continue with this, kind of the state what the market is in now. I think you could easily see it going back up to 150 soon, and keep on rising. I think Vistra is just getting started. So these are two stocks that I've already made videos on, and they went down obviously when the market dropped a ton, but they pretty much rebounded to where they were beforehand. So if you did not get in there, I would strongly suggest getting in them now, because again, it might be too late soon. Uber, they released their earnings, they could easily go up to 85, and then it gets a little more expensive. Vistra, you wait a little longer, it could be up to 150, 160. It's a little expensive. So these are great times to buy. And obviously I can't tell the future in the short term, but in the long term, I'm very confident that these will be good investments. Again, strong companies. They have very strong fundamentals and financials, growing financials. They don't really have any business problems, and they're pretty cheap right now. So I would definitely buy them while they're cheap. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you're looking at any other stocks. And yeah, thanks for watching.